Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. In today's video we're going to look at getting started with the Blades of Khorne in Warhammer Age of Sigmar, using the Goreblade Warband box set as a starting point for our force. We'll look to add to the additional box set and build a starting 1000 point army that can be used to play in Age of Sigmar, either in match play or work as a starting force for Path to Glory. The Blades of Khorne are the servants of the Blood God. They represent the struggle survival in which only the strongest may prosper. As the physical incarnation of wrath, slaughter and rage, the followers of the Blood God have annihilated countless civilizations. The skulls they have collected are piled so high as to be mistaken for mountain ranges, and the blood they have spilled mistaken for oceans. When the Age of Chaos swept across the mortal realms, it was actually the realm of fire that Khorne turned his attention to the most. His legions wrought devastation and slaughter across the lands for generations. Now, in the Age of Sigmar, they fight to continue that slaughter against their returned, hated enemy and his newly armoured clad followers. And so before we get into looking at our box set today and what comes inside it, we're going to talk about the battle traits for Khorne. Khorne has a couple of main battle traits with some rules that spring off of one of the particular ones. Now the first of these battle traits is Blood Drenched. This is a once per battle army ability you can use during any hero phase, and you can use this ability if half the number of units in both players' armies rosters combined, rounding up, have been destroyed. So for example, if your roster had 9, your opponent's roster had 4, then 7 units would need to be destroyed in order for this to go off. And the effect of this is it applies a bunch of different buffs to your Khorne forces. It does have a wild-eyed brutality, which means you can't get any positive modifiers to your save rolls, but you do get the ability of crit mortal on a bunch of blood-hungry weapons. Weapons of murder get to add 1 to their rend, and you also get some bonus damage there on your big demon monsters as well. So really good combat buffs, but obviously come at that little bit of a cost. Now, the next two rules are working around a mechanic that has been long known with Khorne, and that is blood type points. Blood for the Blood God is the first of these rules, a passive ability where each time a unit is destroyed, whether it's friend or enemy, you simply get a blood type point. Now, you can use blood type abilities during the game with this, and so all of these can sort of be picked to be used. You have to sort of unlock them as the game goes on. As you can see by the chart, you have to be connected in how you sort of work. Now you've got a bunch of different abilities, and first of all is Skulls for the Skull Throne. Once per battle round, start of any turn, you can pick a blood type ability that you've not unlocked and spend a number of blood type points equal to that to unlock the ability. And so this is how we trigger everything. Murderlust is the first one we get, and we just get this as per standard. You do not need to unlock this ability to use it. It's already unlocked at the beginning of the game. You roll a dice and you can do some mortal damage on your own unit, but you can make your charge rolls that little bit more likely to succeed by being able to reroll one of the dice. Divine Scorn is then next, and this is a once per turn, start of any turn as well. Pick 3 enemy wizards or priests within 6 inches of your Blades of Khorne, and they can have some of their power levels reduced to a minimum of 0, which can be really potent in stopping your opponent's magic outright. Murder the Mystic allows you to get some banishment rolls off for free. Glorious Combat or Naught allows you to subtract 1 from your hit rolls for shooting attacks that target any of your friendly Blades of Khorne. Revel in Battle means you can only unlock this ability if you've unlocked some of the others, but other than companion weapons, weapon abilities for combat attacks made by units that target any Blades of Khorne have no extra ability, so they crit mortal or crit 2 hits and that sort of stuff do not work. A really good one. Slaughter at Triumphant then means you can add 1 to the attacks characteristic of friendly Blades of Khorne's unit, and Cleave Wide the Grin of Khorne means you can add 1 to hit rolls for your Blades of Khorne as well. So all in all, these are a large variety of different abilities for your Blades of Khorne, and you're going to be able to sort of pick how you want to choose the path, and this may be dictated by sort of what you're coming up against, what you're favouring. Do you need sort of the defensive buffs? Do you need the offensive buffs more? What do you need on the table? And you can use multiple of the same ability. If you don't need to upgrade, you don't need to upgrade. You can just sort of keep using the ones you've already unlocked. There's nothing stopping you going back and using the same one multiple times as long as you've unlocked it. Today's video is sponsored by Gap Games, a fantastic miniature wargaming store in Queensland, Australia. They stock a wide variety of miniature wargames from all things Games Workshop to some of my personal favourites, Conquest, The Last Argument of Kings, and all things Modifius wargames as well. Use our affiliate code in the link below to help support both this fantastic store and the channel as well. The first model that comes in our box set is the Mighty Lord of Khorne, and this is a pretty solid hero with 7 health, a 3+ save, control score of 2 and 5-inch move, both of those two pretty standard stuff there for foot heroes. You've got your Axe of Khorne, which is 5 attacks, rend 2, damage 2, and a couple of extra attacks from his Fleshhound companion there. Now, you have a couple of special rules that make this model unique, and the first of these is Lord of the Bloodbound. We add 1 to wound rolls for friendly Bloodbound infantry while they're wholly within 12 inches of this unit, giving him a really nice aura buff. What's cool as well is this model is on a relatively large base, so it does project that 12-inch bubble quite nicely. You've also got Bring Me the Skull, where you can pick another friendly Bloodbound infantry hero once per turn during the combat phase and give them strike first. Now, this is a pretty cool ability because you do have some definitely good fighty characters within the Blades of Khorne, as we'll see as we go through this video. And being able to just get that few extra attacks before, you go into your first activation and stuff like that can be the difference between maybe killing something and not killing something. So, always a good way to get a few extra attacks, but really this model is here because of that +1 to wound. It's such a rare buff in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Now, you do have the ability to potentially choose to run this model as the Scourge of Ghyran version, but for the purpose of this video, we have looked at this one to fit into our list. Joining this model, we then have the Bloodsecrator, another Khorne hero. 6 health, a 3+ save, once again, slightly on that bigger scale of heroes. The average is about 5 wounds on a 4-up save, is what you would say. So, slightly better. Your Ensorcelled Axe is a 4 attack, damage 2 weapon, and you've got the Icon of the Blood God, where if you use any rally abilities for Bloodbound units while they're wholly within 12 inches of this model, they will get to make 3 additional rally rolls, so a little bit of a better chance to potentially get some extra models back into your forces. And you do have a once per battle ability where you can add 1 to the attacks characteristic of friendly Bloodbound units melee weapons for the rest of the turn over your whole army. This, I think, is just incredibly powerful. Now, this can also combo nicely if you do get, say, a character alongside to use the ability and get strikes first to pair with a unit getting +1 attack. Characters that have multiple different weapon options are really good for this. This is a nice way to sort of pile in that sort of damage you can get from that +1 wound bubble, making sure you're getting that bonus attack in there. You've also just got a solid enough hero that this is going to be able to join some other regiments as well as a potential hero inside other characters' regiments, which is nice. Lastly, for heroes inside this box set, we have the Bloodstoker. Now, this is more of the average sort of hero profile we expect to see in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. 5 health, 4+ save here. Your Tortured Blade and Blood Whip are another 4 attack, damage 2 profile, very similar to the Bloodsecrator we just talked about. However, this model has a once per turn ability for army. What that means, army in brackets here, is that only one of these models in your whole army can use this ability during your turn. This is used during your movement phase as well, so if you do have multiple Bloodstokers, you wouldn't get to activate this multiple times. Now, what it does is you pick a friendly non-hero Bloodbound unit, wholly within this unit's combat range, and so as long as they're within 3 inches of this model, you're good. For the rest of the turn, that unit can use charge abilities even if they use run abilities as well. Now, this does combine, once again, we can stack this on another unit that we're getting the +1 attack, the +1 to wound, ability to run and charge them. It's important to remember that you are going to need to keep that Mighty Lord of Khorne in sort of range with this, so you will need to potentially spend command points to make sure that model auto runs 6 to make sure you keep that bubble alive. So just be wary of that when you are thinking of combining this rule with something else and you're receiving buffs from another piece, that while this model, gives them the ability to run and charge while it's in combat range, once they get out of that, it needs to make sure it's there after the move to run, and then obviously it needs to be in range to charge as well. So for that run, you need to have this model run alongside them. To make that charge, you will need the other pieces around as well to make sure all those buffs sort of join in. So Khorne can be a little bit like this, where you have different units that have different buffs coming out, and you've just sort of got a plan to where things are. And so moving on to units, and the first of these are going to be the Blood Reavers. These are your generic sort of cultist models for the Blades of Khorne army. A 6+ save, or 1 health each, nothing to write home there, but they do have 2 attacks each with their Reaver Blades and Axes, 4s to hit, 3s to wound, no rend, damage 1. Now the no rend is obviously a big issue with the models here. They are relatively cheap at cost, which is good, but when they do get the Blood for the Blood God ability off, they get to add 1 to their rend characteristic of their melee weapons if they're charged in the same turn. This can obviously be powered up by the fact that we've got other abilities that can allow them to run and charge, so you're making sure you get those runs off when you need them. And the ability to charge long distances can be really useful because you are only a 5-inch move unit, so you are relatively slow. But with all those different buffs, that can turn even a unit of these into quite a substantial threat. Next in the box set, we get a unit of Blood Warriors, or at least we get half a unit of Blood Warriors, and we'll talk more about this in just a second because we'll want to add to this later. But Blood Warriors are a 2 health, 3+ save unit. They're essentially Chaos Warriors marked with Khorne. They have their Gore weapons, which are 3 attacks with a crit auto wound ability, meaning anytime you roll a 6 to hit with this unit, they'll automatically wound. No wound roll is needing to be made. They have that rend 1 standard and damage 1, but also while they're contesting the objective you do not control, they get ward 5+. They're actually a really good unit to go and try and take objectives off opponents with. That defensive sort of buff means this can be a unit you activate later in the activations. You'd want to activate, something like your Blood Reavers first, who definitely don't have a good defense and are potentially going to get punched first and have most of them removed. You've also got the ability, obviously, with the Mighty Lord of Khorne that we've already shown, to have this unit joined by a character that can get always strikes first. Then you could activate your Blood Reavers first as your first pick in your turn, and then you can let your opponent attack. They can try and attack the Blood Warriors who have got the more defensive buffs on them, and then the Blood Warriors can attack last, hopefully not having suffered very serious damage. Lastly, inside the box set, we have a Khorne. This is a Khornate monster, 8 health, 5+ save, so on that smaller side of monsters. It does have a Claws and Fangs, which are companion weapons, so don't take a lot of buffs on them. You need rules that will specifically target companion rules to be able to get some buffs off on this. But 5 attacks, rend 1, damage 2, 4s to hit, 2s to wound. Not too shabby, it's not relatively expensive points wise. And you do have some abilities. So first of all is your Rampage Horrific Predators. This is a once per turn army ability, so once per game only 1 Khorne can use this. During a combat phase, you pick an enemy unit within combat with it, roll a dice on a 3+, they can't use commands. This can be a really good one if you are going to sort of try and remove an opponent's piece when you combine this with other pieces. It's not necessarily going to be the damage dealer itself, but it will, allow your units to punch through, not allowing your enemy to use all that defense and stuff like that. Now, Feast Upon Their Bones is an end of turn ability. It also has, we subtract 3 from the control scores of enemy non-monster units while they're in combat with this unit. So should you fail to remove enemy units, that ability to drop their control score a little bit as well can help you just maybe claim the objectives off opponents. And so where to go next, and the first thing we're going to focus on is the faction terrain for the Blades of Khorne, and this is the Skull Altar. Now the Skull Altar has a few special rules that we need to look at, and sort of how it's sort of going to dictate what we do with our army, and definitely how we build our force as well. Now the first of these is Words of Hate, where while this terrain feature has an Invoker, and we'll talk about them in a sec, we get to add 1 to charging rolls for the Invoker. The Invoker can't use move abilities. Instead of measuring range and visibility to the Invoker, we use the Skull Altar instead. All attacks that would target the Invoker instead target the Skull Altar, and if this terrain feature is destroyed before removing it, we inflict some damage on the Invoker, then place the Invoker on the table, and then no longer the Invoker. Now with that all out the way, Ascend the Altar is how we sort of get onto it. We can take heroes that are nearby, put them on if we don't have an Invoker. Once they're on the altar, they become the Invoker, and they can also jump off the altar as well, then losing the Invoker themselves. So they can also be voluntarily taken off as well as destroyed. The big thing here is Hatred of Sorcery, where if this terrain feature has an Invoker, we can pick up to D3 enemy endless spells within 18 inch of it, and then make a banishment roll of 2d6. We resolve the effect of the banished manifestation against them, and then we can also generate some additional blood type points. So spending a bit of points here to have a priest that definitely gets a bit more of a save, because they will go to a 4-up save, 10 health thanks to the Skull Altar. They get, that bonus to their chanting rolls, which is really cool, but also the ability to just get rid of manifestations, which can otherwise be a little bit of a pain for our force, because once again we don't have wizards to normally get rid of them. This is just another piece that allows us to sort of function in that magic phase that little bit better. And so where to go next? And the first thing we're going to look at is going to be a Slaughter Priest. Blades of Khorne don't have wizards in their force, instead they use prayers for the majority of their sort of magical power on the table, and for this we're going to look at a Slaughter Priest. The Slaughter Priest is probably my pick of the different sort of priests we have access to across the Blades of Khorne for one big reason, and that's the Scorn of Sorcery ability that allows it to unbind as if it were a Wizard 1 model. This is really important because obviously the priest can already try and banish manifestations and do all that sort of stuff, but having Scorn of Sorcery, being able to unbind spells before they actually take effect, is going to be a really important thing. You've also got the ability to gain some extra ritual points when you are chanting with this priest by sacrificing nearby models as well. And so where to go after that Slaughter Priest? And the first thing we're going to look at is Blood Warriors. We're definitely going to want to pick up some more Blood Warriors, as the initial box set only gives us 5, and Blood Warriors come standard in units of 10. What this means is we'll need to find an additional 5 Blood Warriors. We can find these either easily from people who've split this box set, or the initial Warhammer Age of Sigmar launch box from 1st edition on things like eBay or buy swap sell pages on Facebook, etc. You might even be able to find them in your local communities. But you can also use Chaos Warriors to fill in this, potentially some of the Warhammer Underworlds bases as well. Thinking, like the Gore Chosen of Drom. You've got the other warbands that have been released for Khorne. Put them on 40mm bases. They'd work perfectly to represent the models in your Blood Warrior unit. And after that, we'll look to grab some more Blood Reavers. With few points left after the initial sort of force we've built, we don't really have a lot, and we've added a priest, which is probably the most important thing. So we're going to look for some cheaper troops. This is going to really help us bring some extra forces to the table, give us a little bit of extra board control, and also help us fulfill battle tactic requirements and stuff like that, provide us with screens, stopping our enemies sort of charging into places we don't want them to be. And so, looking at the manifestations for Khorne, this is definitely something once you've got priests that you want to pick up. Now we get 3 of these inside the box set, and the first of these is the Wrath Axe. This is a direct damage dealing manifestation. It's got some decent damage in combat with 4 attacks, forced to hit, 2 to wound, rend 2 damage d3. But also, if this manifestation charges this turn, it can potentially deal some mortal damage on an enemy unit and just take a model out immediately, which is really, really cool. And so we then have the Hexgorger Skulls next. Stream of Molten Blood means they get some damage in combat, but really that's not what they're there for. You have 2 pieces for this particular manifestation when it comes out, and what this does is they have to sort of end near each other, but each one of them can cause enemy wizards for each part of this manifestation that's within 8 inch to subtract 1 from their casting roll. So you can actually make a -2 to casting rolls with this. Once again, another ability to really detract from magic and help you sort of make up for that lack that Khorne does have. The last one we have is the Bleeding Icon. This allows us to pick a friendly Blades of Khorne unit wholly within 8 inch of the manifestation, then pick a Blood type ability we've not unlocked during the battle, and we can potentially get that Blood type ability on one of our friendly units. This can be really important as it does allow us to get some extra sort of abilities out that we may need for our force, especially early doors in the game. Now, we do have to roll and exceed this, so it's not a guarantee that this goes off, especially you're looking at like 50% for some of the stronger manifestations that you have access to and some of the abilities, but it is a cool tool to have in the arsenal. And so our force today is the Blades of Khorne Bloodbound Warlord, which is going to be our battle formation. The Tireless Conqueror's ability is what we get here. It's a passive ability where add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Bloodbound units that target an enemy unit that is contesting an objective we don't control. This does sort of go hand in hand when we're thinking of things like Blood Warriors that get that ward save while we're attacking on units and objectives we don't control is really nice. And so our first regiment is going to be led by a hero, which is going to be our Mighty Lord of Khorne. It's got the heroic trait Magical Scorn and the artifact of power, the Collar of Contempt, which is going to give us some extra magical protection in our force. For units, we then have the Blood Secretor, another hero joining this, 2 units of Blood Reavers, and a unit of Blood Warriors as well. Our second regiment is then going to be led by our Bloodstoker, and for units inside that regiment we then just have the Khorne. Our second regiment is then going to be led by our while our third regiment is going to be just by their lonesome a single Slaughter Priest. We hope this video was helpful in getting you started with Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and it was able to give you some ideas and inspiration to start your own force in the game. If you have any other questions at all, please comment down below, and while you're there, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and join our Discord server to check out all our future Warhammer Age of Sigmar content.